To summarize everything that had been going on in the third year arc, Ayanokoji's current goal is to create a balance between the four classes and let the class battle last as long as possible to see if Horikita or the others could defeat Ayanokoji when he decides to take everything seriously. Most of the conflict in the third year arc currently revolves around Ayanokoji's goal, but with the current condition from the newest volume, it's obvious that Ayanokoji's class is currently on the lead to destroy Horikita's class, and there is not even a shred of balance between the four classes. With everything that we have seen so far, it's easy to say that Ayanokoji's goal for someone to defeat him is simply unrealistic. However, that is exactly the reason why Ayanokoji decided to do that, because something unrealistic is the only thing that could free him from his father, and from his own darkness. Before we are talking about how to defeat Ayanokoji from Horikita and the others' perspectives, let's take a step back and try to figure out what exactly made Ayanokoji believe that his plan is worth trying. Ayanokoji first got the idea to do something meaningful in his school life when he was talking with Manabu. At that time, Manabu said that his sister has a lot of potential, but the way Horikita imitates everything about her brother was hindering her growth. Manabu believed that as long as Horikita could find her own way, she would be able to surpass him, and even become a threat for Ayanokoji. If we see it from Ayanokoji's perspective, there is no actual data or sample case that could support Manabu's argument. However, Manabu believes in his sister, and that alone is strange enough for Ayanokoji. Manabu seems like a logical person, and yet he believes in something without any actual proof. Ayanokoji knew that Manabu is not some doting brother who fawned over his sister, so his belief piqued Ayanokoji's curiosity, and a sudden thought crossed his mind. It was just a hunch, but Ayanokoji chose to dedicate the remainder of his school life to see if his hunch was right or not. He wanted to test Manabu's belief, and he wanted to see if the regular students could grow into someone he cannot ignore as long as they get the right development, just like Horikita. Ayanokoji wanted to leave his presence in the mind of people around him, so he created a grand stage to make sure they would remember how strong and how important Ayanokoji was in their lives. Ayanokoji knows it's impossible for them to win, but just like Manabu, Ayanokoji chose to believe. Since Ayanokoji just thought about his plan at the end of the first year, and need to transfer class before the third year, he only had 1 year to prepare everything for his plan. And since Tsukishiro and the White Room student kept bothering him at the start of the second year, Ayanokoji only had around half a year to focus on his plan, so a lot of mistakes were just bound to happen. Ayanokoji's original plan was to expel Ichinose and transfer to her class, so he could lead them to fight against the other three classes. However, Sakayanagi, who knew about his plan, chose to have fun by trying to expel Ryuwen at the final special exam of the second year, resulting in Ayanokoji need to improvise. At the end, he chose to expel Sakayanagi, and Sakayanagi decided to play into his hands, resulting in Ayanokoji transferred to her class. Just by his original plan, there is quite a big hole in Ayanokoji's plan. At the end of the second year arc, Horikita's class led the race with 1233 class points, and Ichinose's class was placed last with 714 class points. If Ayanokoji really transfers to Ichinose's class and Ichinose needs to withdraw from school, they will lose another 300 class points, resulting in an 800 class point difference with Class A. Just for a note, Horikita's class managed to gain 1,000 class points just in the second year alone, but half of those points came from the uninhabited island exam and the final special exam of the second year. There is no telling if an exam as big as the previous one will happen again in the third year, so gaining 800 class points in a single year sounds like an impossible task, even if it's for Ayanokoji. However, his conversation with Ichinose in Volume 12.5 gave us a clue on how Ayanokoji will try to resolve that issue. He said he will try to expel someone outside the special exam, so the target class will lose 300 class points in an instant. If he expels 1 or 2 students with that method, bringing Ichinose's class to Class A doesn't sound impossible at all. At this point, Ayanokoji's plan sounds plausible, and also challenging enough for him to do. However, Ichinose chose to stay, so Ayanokoji ended up transferring to Sakayanagi's class. With the improvised plan, the current gap between Class A and Class D is only 500, and with Ayanokoji's cooperation with Ichinose, the challenging plan of Ayanokoji suddenly becomes so much easier to the point it's not even fun to think about. With the possibility of the next exam being an island exam, I could say that the gap between Class D and Class A could disappear even before the second semester starts. If that really happens, all Horikita's class advantage will be gone even before they are ready to fight. And if that actually happen, the cooperation between Ayanokoji and Ichinose will be over. And the four classes will be forced to fight against each other in their current state, which clearly doesn't seem balanced at all. Horikita's class will be in full chaos, Ichinose's class is still carried by Ichinose alone, and Ryuen's class is still struggling with their incapability. No matter how you look at it, Ayanokoji's class is already guaranteed to win at this point, and that is not something that Ayanokoji was hoping for. These are the two biggest problems with Ayanokoji's goal. He values Horikita and the others too highly, and he made a mistake by not taking into account how easy it will be if he decides to go all out. If the balanced score between the four classes happens so early in the middle of the year, Ayanokoji will have no choice but to admit that he is wrong and give up on his goal, or purposely take defeat a few times just to give Horikita and the others more opportunity to grow. No matter which choice he chooses, it doesn't sound like an ideal outcome, because at the end of the day, they are still alive under the mercy of Ayanokoji. However, since Ayanokoji could anticipate Sakayanagi and Ryuen's bet, and improvise his plan in the middle of the way, I am 100% sure Ayanokoji already anticipated the best outcome that he wanted, and prepared everything to make sure things would go his way. For example, Ayanokoji should have a plan to make Ichinose grow independent instead of keep clinging to him. Ayanokoji already took part in Kanzaki Revolution back in the second year, and Kinugasa still owes a conclusion to that plot because Himeno's quote from the third year website still gives us a hint about her revolution. Ayanokoji should also have a plan to make Horikita's class grow stronger, because back in volume 12.5, he already threatened Koenji that he will expel Michan as long as he has a chance to do that, which will eventually force Koenji to cooperate. As for Ryuen class, I don't see if Ayanokoji has a plan for them. I think the best way for Ryuen's class to fight back is by cooperating with Horikita, and there is a chance it would happen if their classes fall behind Ayanokoji's class. If Ayanokoji managed to turn the table and drag them down, Horikita and Ryuen will have no choice but to cooperate. But on the other hand, Ayanokoji and Ichinose's cooperation will be over, which means that their condition will be reversed. Ichinose will need to find her own way to handle both Ryuen and Horikita, while Ayanokoji could steadily secure his position at the top and wait for them to come. It could eventually lead to Ichinose joining hands with them and changing the class battle into 3 versus 1, and if that's bound to happen, I could say Ayanokoji has a really good chance to actually lose the special exam. In conclusion, Ayanokoji's plan was simply unrealistic, but it could potentially happen just because Ayanokoji is the one who took control of everything. However, if Ayanokoji already prepared everything to make sure the battle between the 4 classes will go the way he wanted, then I could say that Ayanokoji's defeat was already planned by himself. Perhaps Ayanokoji was already planning to settle everything at the final special exam of the 3rd year, and that is the moment he wanted to lose. If Ayanokoji already anticipated the possibility of 3 classes working together to defeat him, he must have already prepared a few safety nets to make sure he will not lose. That means the final special exam of the 3rd year will be the contest to see who could outsmart better, Ayanokoji or the others. That will be quite poetic if Ayanokoji, who always planned everything perfectly to the very end, finally gets his plan destroyed at the end of his journey. That loss will be proof that not everything could be predicted, and not everything could always go his way. If someday Ayanokoji takes over the White Room from his father, maybe he will change the system to make sure the failed one will not immediately be discarded, but will get another chance to improve themselves. And that is the reason why Ayanokoji needs to lose. It might sound impossible, but as long as Ayanokoji himself believes in that possibility, maybe he could really make it happen.